Good evening and welcome back to the Leader's Edge. We're now in the middle of this wonderful series called Leadership Development Under the New Normal. This is Season 3, Episode 3, Part 3. But don't you worry, you can always catch up on Parts 1 and 2 through this YouTube channel. And please take a look at them so that we'll be able to appreciate this coming part and the parts to come. With us tonight is Mr. June Roy, the HROD Consulting Head for the Manila branch of the Nomura Research Institute, a global think tank based in Tokyo, Japan. And there's more. He is also the outgoing program chair of the Philippine Society of Training Development and the incoming president of that same organization. It speaks about his over 25 years experience. Wow, 25 years. I don't know how he does it. 25 years in HR, OD, QMS, risk management, personal effectiveness, leadership, agile, and much, much more. And a dedicated family man devoted to Mary Grace, his wife, and to 3 wonderful kids. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again, Mr. June Roy. June Roy. Now, June, we talked about social learning last time, and now please continue. What other new stuff we can learn about how to develop leaders in this age of the pandemic?
Thank you, Nelson, for that wonderful introduction again. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our episode on leadership development in the new normal. In the second session, we talk about social learning. Now, let's talk about the other kinds of learning that you can use to make your leadership development program more relevant, more attuned, and more effective in view of the needs of the times. So let's talk about reflective learning. What is this? So reflective learning, it's basically about the use of reflection to make sense of what we experience and translate them into learning. Nelson, do you agree that experience is the best teacher?
Not really. It's probably experience where it is evaluated perfectly or rather adequately.
Exactly. But you see, most of the times we hear about experience being the greatest teacher, right? And so Nelson is right. Experience without reflection is meaningless. Think about the day-to-day experience that passes by yesterday, the other day. Did we really learn from them? What was your learning during the last time that you had your lunch? Can we find any opportunity for learning by having lunch? When we were trying to find our clothes, what clothes to wear, that's an experience. Can we learn something from that? The answer to that is we can, because those can serve as powerful metaphors that can make us reflect. But the problem is that we are not using our reflection enough or purposefully so that we can learn from that experience. So what reflective learning does is to make reflection become purposeful and deliberate. And what you can see here, for example, is what gives reflective cycle, which is very basic. First, you have your descriptions, your feelings, then it goes towards the action plan after you do your reflection. Now, in practical terms, how do you do that? When you do training, you engage the participants into their self-assessment. So if they are doing a leadership training on problem solving or their leadership style, by having them reflect on their own style through a self-assessment, you are engaging them in a reflective learning. I like the idea of flipped classroom. The traditional classroom, virtually or physically, is that you are the teacher or facilitator, you discuss something and they listen. So they come there almost like empty-handed. In a flipped classroom, you give them pre-work prior to that, so they don't come zero or empty-handed. Something is there already in their head. You made them already reflect on something. And what you do as a facilitator is to validate that or to engage them on what they experience in reflecting on that learning or assignment that you have given them. Learning journals has been tried and tested long before. My favorite is also the 1 to 2 minute reflection time, especially when I am using Zoom or virtual learning. For 1 minute, think about what you learned through this session. And then later on, I'll follow it up for 1 minute. Just identify one action point that you can commit to do as a result of your learning. I can also say for 1 minute, can you type your most important insight to this learning? I can use other tools like Padlet, Miro, or the annotate version of the Zoom to do that. And so when I do that, I am actually using what we call the reflective learning or harnessing the power of reflection. Now, what the beauty of reflection is that how much do you really have to pay? Do you need technology to make people reflect? No, it's free. In fact, the best source of knowledge and learning for me is by way of our reflection. When we reflect on our experiences and use them to make sense. So you heard that, 1 to 2 minutes, right? So it's easy. Now the question is, how much do you really have to spend on using reflective learning? The answer to that is zero, none. Why? It doesn't cost anything, only time. And so it's free. Yet it is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful source of learning you can ever have for you and for your leaders. The only problem is that we are not harnessing it the way we should have. And so when you do that, all of the self-assessment, flipped classroom, learning journals, the 1 to 2 minute, giving them reflective learning assignments prior to the training or after that, you're actually maximizing the most important resource of all, which is reflection.
That's wonderful, June. And actually, while you're talking about reflection, I'm also reflecting because I'm thinking about, well, experience is the richest man in the world. You know why? Every time somebody makes a mistake, we charge it to experience. That's why he's very rich right now. But kidding aside, I'm just thinking about my own past educational system. And I wonder if reflection comes easy to most people because for where I came from, this way before K-12, it's mostly memorizing, perhaps some skills training, but not much on reflecting. In fact, the closest thing I can think of was essay writing. So I wonder if your experience is that reflection doesn't come easy to most people you have trained. What can you say about that?
I agree to that, Nelson, because of certain educational system that they have went through where reflection is not encouraged. Critical thinking is not encouraged. So it becomes more difficult for certain people to practice it. So for the practitioners of learning and development, when you make them engage in reflective learning and they experience what we call aha moment, so it is something that can be easily embraced. That means all you have to do is to make them experience that aha moment in terms of their reflection. I do that all the time, even sometimes during the job interviews. I ask them, what is your reflection on our conversation? At the end of the coaching session or a discussion there, I can ask, what did you learn?
I
So
like
when
that.
they experience that aha moment, then they embrace the power of reflection.
I like that. And I wonder about the aha moment. Does that mean that the teacher sort of release some control because then he may have to give a statement or ask a question and then he hopes to high heaven that the aha moment, the light bulb appears on the student's head.
All right, Nelson, first of all, we are not teachers. We are facilitators. There's no problem in teaching. We recognize that. But when we engage in developing our leaders, we are not actually teaching them. We are facilitating their learning process. So what we do is to create an environment so that they can learn from their experiences. So what we give them are questions that they can reflect on. And when
That's
they
a
reflect on that and they experience aha moment and they discover something about themselves, then they can have better appreciation of the power of reflective learning. And I'm saying that based on countless times that I have used it in the past since I was conducting training in the 1990s.
That's a great reminder. Yeah, I stand corrected. We're not teachers, we're facilitators. And I think one of our objectives is to help the other person discover for himself, and that's where he has greater ownership. I have another question in terms of reflective learning. Is it like there are some personality types which are more conducive to reflective learning, but others not so? I'm thinking about Myers-Briggs or DISC, but I wonder, are there personality types where it'll be hard for them and therefore not recommended to do reflective learning?
I like your question, Nelson, because I'm a certified facilitator and practitioner of MBTI, and
Hmm.
I have done a lot of MBTI sessions here and abroad. And so, in all of these sessions that I have conducted, and based on the trainings and certification that I got, keyword is flex. What that means is that, yes, you have your inborn preferences and tendencies, but it doesn't limit you to embrace and to practice other behaviors that are more associated with the other type. So, speaking of reflective learning, one dichotomy or pair of types that is applicable is what we call the introversion and extroversion. So, introverts reflect more on their experiences, they're the reflective type. So if you are an extrovert and you like more talking to people, social learning is more for you. So it doesn't mean that you cannot practice reflective learning. So the role of the facilitator is to provide an environment where the extrovert can flex. That means it's like inviting him to another house. His house is extroversion house, but he can always go to another house and see what's in there, become a guest, enjoy and partake of whatever it's there. And then he can always go back again to his old house, which is extraversion. So that's what flex means. And anybody can do that as long as the facilitator or the leader is given that opportunity. And that environment is created where he can flex comfortably, safely, without any threat.
I love that. And you just reminded us of a valuable principle: keep a safe environment so people can be open to share. I love that. And thank you for reminding that. And I have one more question. And I'm a writer myself. And I just wonder, of course, not everybody probably wants to write. And the way I see your material is that learning journals, note taking, blogs. I wonder if there are people who say, but Sir June, I'm not a writer. I have difficulty writing and that. So what can you say with that?
All right. I've encountered that a lot of times, actually, Nelson. So it's a good question for me. And my answer to them is, all right, I'm not asking you to write a novel or an essay. One sentence.
Ah,
One sentence for you to describe what you learn. And you know what? With one sentence, he gets the hang of it. He likes the experience of actually being able to realize something. It becomes two sentences. Before he knew it, it becomes five sentences. But I always start with one sentence, a parallel to 1 minute. Because if you give them an essay type of assessment or reflection, you're right, 100%. They will hate it.
I love that. You start small. Yeah, before you know it, they'll be writing memoirs. I love that idea. Thank you very much, June. And that concludes part three of this wonderful series. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just a foretaste of the rest of the series. Do join us for next time for part four, where Mr. June Roy, our resource person, will continue to share with us how to develop leaders in this age of the pandemic. And remember, in the Leader's Edge, we have this thing called learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas. If you love this show, please do and take the effort to click, like, and share. Again, this is Nelson D signing off, and have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year.